Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today, we're diving into episode 4 of Us, the series. The episode kicks off when Fim discovered the truth that it wasn't Kai who had drawn for her all along, but Dokrak. She was truly shocked. Dokrak, on the other hand, felt immense guilt for having deceived Fim all this time. She broke down in tears, desperately apologizing to Fim. Since that day, Dokrak found herself deeply troubled, unable to go to work, feeling guilty for what she had done to Fim. She was afraid to face Fim, fearing that Fim would be angry with her. Dokrak went to Oat's place, where she worked, and drank to forget everything. She drank until she was drunk. She didn't want to lie to Fim, but feared that if she didn't do this, it would disappoint her brother, Koi. As for Fim, she wasn't angry with Dokrak and didn't feel upset at all. However, when she realized Dokrak was the one who had drawn the postcard, it made her feel something special, although she didn't know exactly what it was. She just knew that she had strong feelings for Dokrak. While Fim was looking at the picture, it instantly made her think of Dokrak. She immediately called Dokrak, but Oat answered the phone and told her that Dokrak was drunk at her place. Upon hearing this, Fim rushed to find Dokrak and took her back to her house. When Dokrak saw Fim, she tearfully apologized again, begging Fim not to be angry with her brother, as he had only done it out of love for Fim. Once they arrived at Dokrak's home, Dokrak, still heavily intoxicated, continued to apologize and confessed that she had secretly loved Fim all along. She pleaded with Fim not to hate her for having these feelings. But for Fim, when Dokrak touched her, it made her heart race. She didn't know what it meant, but without thinking, she leaned in and kissed Dokrak, which made her realize that she had special feelings for Dokrak too. The two shared a heartfelt kiss, filled with happiness. The next morning, Dokrak woke up feeling uneasy, barely remembering what had happened the night before due to her drunken state. As she tried to piece things together, she recalled the kiss and, more importantly, that Fim had been the one to initiate it. This left Dokrak feeling conflicted. She couldn't understand why Fim had kissed her. Throughout the day at work, she couldn't stop thinking about it, feeling restless and distracted. When she left work, she was surprised to see Fim waiting for her to take her home. Dokrak felt awkward, but they rode the bus together. During the ride, the bus suddenly braked, causing Fim and Dokrak to move closer to each other. They stood there, staring into each other's eyes, their hearts racing. However, Dokrak quickly composed herself and, upon reaching the bus stop, told Fim, "We should part ways here. I think I'll walk home by myself." She didn't want to inconvenience Fim by having her accompany her all the way home and then having to return alone. Fim, sensing that Dokrak was trying to avoid her, questioned her, but Dokrak insisted it wasn't the case, she just didn't want to trouble Fim. Eventually, Fim accompanied Dokrak home. Deep down, Dokrak truly loved Fim, but she didn't want to betray her brother, so she tried to suppress her feelings. She didn't want to break her brother's heart. Meanwhile, Fim's feelings for Dokrak grew stronger. After work one day, Fim went to the coffee shop where Dokrak worked and asked her out for a meal. She wanted Dokrak to recommend some good places to eat. Dokrak took Fim to one of her favorite spots. As they ate, Dokrak asked, "Why did you suddenly ask me out for a meal today?" Fim replied, "I couldn't decide what to eat, so I thought of you." Hearing this, Dokrak was taken aback and quickly took a sip of water to hide her embarrassment. Fim noticed Dokrak's flushed cheeks and felt a bit flustered herself. After the meal, Fim happily took Dokrak home, as usual. One day, when Fim returned home, she found debt collectors harassing her grandmother and sister. Fim rushed to her grandmother and shouted at the debt collectors, asking why they were still bothering her family, especially since she had already paid off all the debts. However, they responded that the debts weren't fully settled because her parents still owed them a significant amount. Hearing this, Fim was shocked and tried to force them out, threatening to call the police. The collectors left, but warned her that they would give her a little more time to repay the debt. If she didn't pay, they would make things even worse for her family. The story then shifted to the past, where Fim's family had once lived happily and peacefully. But one day, things took a turn for the worse when her family got into serious debt, and her father passed away. Not long after, her mother had an accident and died as well. This double loss left Fim heartbroken, and she cried uncontrollably at the sudden death of her parents. Fim felt deep anger and resentment toward those who had caused her family's downfall, and she vowed never to forgive them. Meanwhile, Kai, despite his own reservations, tried to fulfill his father's wishes, even though he was aware of his father's immoral actions. He felt powerless to do anything but comply with his father's demands. Dokrak, on the other hand, remembered her past. Back in high school, she had a fight with a classmate who spoke badly about her family, blaming her father's bad behavior for the troubles her family faced. Dokrak was shocked and almost didn't believe it. Later, her teacher called her parents in for a meeting. When they arrived, her father scolded Dokrak harshly and left in anger. When Dokrak returned home, her father continued to berate her, and they argued bitterly. Dokrak then asked about the bad things her father had done to a student's family. Her father became even angrier and reprimanded her for asking about things he didn't want to talk about. Upset, Dokrak left home and decided to live on her own. Returning to the present, one day as Fim was taking Dokrak home, Dokrak noticed that Fim looked troubled and asked if something was on her mind. Fim hesitated for a moment before confessing, "I love you." What will happen next? Stay tuned for the next episode. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and share to support the channel. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think will happen next? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for updates. See you in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.